Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into Atiq Rahimi's incredible novel, The Patient Stone. Now, this is a story that mostly unfolds inside the four walls of a single room, but believe me, it holds an entire universe of silenced truth.
So, let's set the scene. Our story begins somewhere in a war-torn country. You can imagine a place like Afghanistan. We find ourselves in this small, stifling room, where the silence is just as heavy and oppressive as the war that's raging right outside.
And inside this room, we meet an unnamed woman watching over her husband. He was once a hero, but now he's just a body on a mattress. He was shot in some pathetic quarrel and is now completely comatose. He's totally silent, motionless. He's basically a living statue.
What's so brilliant about this book is the jarring contrast it sets up. Inside the room, you have this suffocating quiet. The only sound is the steady, mechanical rhythm of her husband's breathing. But right outside that window, bombs are exploding, warring factions are plundering the city, and the violence is just senseless. We experience the war exactly as she does. We don't see it, we hear it, we feel the walls shake.
Her whole life has just been boiled down to this one single looping duty. For 16 days straight, she's cared for him, put drops in his eyes, and recited the 99 names of God. Her entire existence is just timed to the rise and fall of his chest, a body that gives absolutely nothing back.
So this crushing silence, it's the entire world of the novel, right? But it's what happens when that silence finally breaks that becomes truly revolutionary.
In his introduction of the novel, the author Khalid Hosseini just nails it. This story gives a voice to one unforgettable woman who really becomes a stand-in, a proxy, for the grievances of millions who've been marginalized and silenced by cultural and religious rules.
And this brings us to the central idea, the core metaphor of the book, the saboor, which means the patient stone. It's this mythical black stone from Persian folklore. And the legend goes, you can confess everything to it, all your pain, your secrets, your deepest sorrows. The stone just listens, it absorbs everything until one day it shatters. And on that day, you are finally set free.
So the woman's endless pious prayers, they've become like a dam holding back years and years of unspoken thoughts. But after 16 days of getting nothing back, that dam is really starting to crack under the pressure of her despair.
And then it happens. The dam doesn't just crack, it absolutely ruptures. A whole flood of frustration, exhaustion, and just raw anger comes pouring out of her, and it's all directed at her silent husband and the absent God she's been praying to.
Now, you have to understand, this isn't just a moment of weakness. It's a massive transformation. She goes from dutiful prayer to desperately begging for any kind of sign, and then finally to this furious vocal protest against her suffering. Her silence? It's over.
And in this moment, her husband, motionless, wordless, and completely unable to judge her, he becomes the one thing she has never, ever had in her entire life, a perfect listener. He becomes her very own patient stone.
And so she begins to speak. Oh, and does she speak. She unleashes this torrent of fiercely guarded secrets. She confesses her resentment for him, the lies she's told, the family trauma she's buried deep down, and her deepest sexual frustrations. These are truths that, if spoken out loud in her world, could mean her total ruin, maybe even her death.
Her confessions are incredibly brave and, honestly, just shocking. She completely dismantles taboos around female sexuality and these rigid codes of honor about virginity. She reveals how she once passed off menstrual blood as virginal blood, and how proud he was of a total lie.
And look, this isn't just her gossiping. With every single one of these stories about his lecherous brothers or her own father sacrificing her sister for a quail, she is taking back her own history. She is finally giving a voice to truths that were forcibly silenced by the men in her life.
But there's the thing. Speaking her truth doesn't just unburden her. It fundamentally changes her. And in doing so, it creates this new and very dangerous reality.
So what happens? Well, what happens is that the act of speaking itself becomes a conscious act of self-liberation. She isn't just venting her desperation anymore. She's actively seizing control of her own story, transforming herself from the inside out.
This shift is the absolute heart of her journey. She goes from being a voiceless object to a speaking subject. From a woman who had to absorb everything without complaint, she becomes one who shamelessly confesses. From a submissive wife, she emerges as this defiant survivor, and really, the dominant storyteller in the room.
And this newfound voice of hers, it becomes her weapon. When a soldier invades her home, threatening her with violence, she doesn't cower, not anymore. She looks him right in the eye and uses the very language of female shame to disarm him, equating her sin with his profession as a killer. It's just an act of incredible defiance.
So, in the end, the Patience Stone leaves us with this powerful question. Through one woman's fevered confessions in a single war-torn room, it explores the profound liberation that comes from speaking truth to power. And it reminds us that for so many people, the freedom to simply speak is the most courageous and dangerous act of all.